Hey everyone, welcome to the Annie Tunes In podcast. Today's episode is with Don Saladino. Don is the trainer to celebrities and stars such as Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool, Blake Lively, Jennifer Aniston. The list goes on and on. But he's also evolved not just as a trainer, but into a fitness entrepreneur. He's built an app. He has retreats going on. He has so many other things and so many other ventures that he's involved in. And I'm super excited to talk all about training celebrities, the entrepreneurial side of fitness, and what he's up to now. So stay tuned. So you are known as kind of this guy who trains a ton of celebrities at this point. You're a fitness entrepreneur as well. So I know you didn't always start that way. So I kind of wanted to start from the beginning and how you got started in your whole fitness journey and career.
You know, it's funny. I think my fitness journey really started, you're going to laugh, in the second grade, right? Like I had a terrible hearing problem. I had an awful stutter and just dealing with a whole bunch of shit. And, you know, when you're a young age, you think that's the worst thing on the planet. And you don't realize that was the fuel that was going to propel you throughout your career. You know, fast forwarding through college, played, you know, it's a Division I college baseball, had dreams playing beyond that. And I started feeling like my dreams were separating from baseball, that the focus was becoming what I do now. And when I graduated, I decided to become a trainer in New York City. I went and got a job at a big box gym. You know, worked for about a year, left, and then started my own training business. Was doing pretty well. I mean, as a young kid, 22 years old, I was making, you know, 6+ figures a year, you know, running around the city, traveling, doing continuing education every week, really honing in my craft, but really, you know, getting very comfortable with dealing with people. Mm-hmm. Fast forward now 5 years, I already went through my first fundraise. I raised about $5 million through angel investors, and I started my first club, Drive 485, which we had a solid 15-year lease, which expired May of 2020. I opened another club called Drive 443 also, which is a little bit more group training. Interesting to get involved with something so different than what 495 was. Started an app company. We were like best in class. Started with some professional athletes, Adrian Peterson, Dwayne Wade, Ernie Els. Did it really well for a while, and then just crashed and burned on that after a while. We exited for way less than what I would have hoped for, but a lot of good learning opportunities. And then, you know, at that point, I've been involved with probably 24 brands, and some that have been done exceptionally well and some that are still trying to figure it out. And fast forwarding to now, we have an online community of about 10,000 people, which I'm really proud of, and working with incredible brands every day, like, you know, Halo Hydration and On Running and Daily Dose and Life Fitness and Hammer Strength and, you know, Vibe Mushrooms and all these incredible companies that really add to, you know, what it is I'm doing every day. So the companies I work with really support it. They don't take away from, you know, the daily focus, which is, you know, helping people and business.
Yeah. And going back to when you first started out, when you first started training people on your own individually after you quit this club that you were working for, were you kind of just driving around trying to get to the client wherever they were?
No, it was interesting. A buddy of mine, he ended up being a very close friend of mine. He passed away, I think, within the last 2 years. He was my boss at the time. He opened a place called the Training Ground, which was up on 72nd Street. Mm-hmm. This was a one-on-one facility, which I really wish they had more of out there. I think a lot of young trainers would do really well, but it was pay $25 an hour to the facility, and you go in and you train that client for an hour. So if you have 10 clients a day, you're paying, you know, 25 times 10.
That's great money for them.
Great money for them, but it's great for the trainer. Think about it, right? Which the trainer now, if they were working at Equinox and they were charging $100 and making only 25, now you can take that same $100, pay it to this facility, and make 75. So you've tripled your income, right? So I think that was a really cool avenue for me. I then got in with the head of construction with a company called Millennium Partners, which was building all the Ritz-Carltons in New York City. They built the Ritz-Carlton Battery Park. So I became the resident trainer there. So I remember my schedule. I think it was like 3 days a week I was going to the Training Ground in the AMs, and another 3 days a week I was driving down to the Ritz, pulling my car in front, handing it to the doorman, giving them $20 to watch my car. And I would go in, train 4 or 5 clients in a row. So I still ran around the city. I mean, I went as far uptown as 100th Street. Wow. I went as far east as Oh God, as York and as far west as 10th Avenue. So, and as far south as Battery
Oh my
Park. I mean,
God.
you're like covering Manhattan. I was all over the place, but I was making money. I was entrepreneurial, and I really understood the subway systems, parking spots, and I really had it down to a nice system. And it was a really awesome time in my life. I mean, this was a good probably 4 to 5 years of just doing it and just living it and building it and establishing all these amazing contacts. I never worried about what I was going to be doing in 10 years. I never
Wow.
worried about what if when I'm having a family or what. I didn't worry about that. I worried about the moment and what it was I was doing. And I always tried to excel and move forward. So, I would go in and break my ass, but I was setting myself up for the future by putting myself in front of people and opportunities I think that were going to really help me excel. But I wouldn't worry about it. I wasn't like, oh, we're going to make $1 million doing this, or oh, what if this doesn't work out? I'm like, I like the idea. Let's go. And at a young age, when you start doing that, cool things happen. You also make some mistakes along the way, right? But that's part of the process. I mean, I'm a vet. I mean, I'm going to be 46 in April. I've been a coach for almost 25 years.
Wow.
And I still, like, my body still feels, my energy still feels like I am when I was 22.
Yeah, well, you probably didn't have time to think a lot about the next step because it's such a grind as a trainer. And that's what people don't realize is it's literally you're just going from one place to the next, hour by hour, all day from 5 a.m. until the evening time. And I want to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of it before we move into some fitness stuff, but it is really such a grind. And the hard thing I think with trainers is moving away from you're getting paid this by the hour and then you cap out, like what's next? And that's the struggle that a lot of people deal with. And I kind of want to talk about like when do you move past that and how?
I got a call about 3 months ago to train a name in Hollywood where if I mention right now, I would never mention it, but one of the hottest movie stars in Hollywood. And I had to turn that person down. And you know what? At some point, you have to move away from certain things. At certain point, you have to look at, am I chasing the old, thought process? Am I trying to chase what it was I was here to do, or am I trying to, move forward? And it's a tough decision to make. It's always, I always cringe when I get reached out by, well-known people. And it's always like, oh, would you work with me? A really well-known name. And you just cringe. And I talk to friends of mine who, Jeff Cavalier, Athlete X, or Gunnar Peterson. And we all get calls once in a while and you want to do it, and you just can't. It's like, there's only so much time in the day. And you also have to look at, where am I putting my time? If I was going to go travel to that individual, I'm in a car now at least an hour, training them for at least an hour, back in a car at least an hour and a half, because it's going to be rush hour at some point. I'm blowing at least 4 hours out of my day. Now, for what? What are they going to pay me? Like, I'm better off being here, developing content, working with my brands, scaling my online community. And, that's what's, setting me up for my future. That's what's been giving me a high level of success. So at a certain point as a coach, like a lot of these coaches I talk to, it's like, you got to grow up. Like, you got to turn around. If you want the same outcome, keep doing the same thing, and it's like, and if you don't want the same outcome, you got to change your way of thinking. The money wears off. Like, I've charged more than any I've charged $500 an hour. I've charged $1,000 an hour. I've charged $1,200 an hour. I could go on to give you numbers. You'd be like, holy shit. At a certain point, it loses its luster. It's not about the money. Oh, is that crazy? Who's worth that type of money as a trainer? Like, my time is my time. I could charge $5,000 an hour if I want. If I'm here making $10,000 an hour on my online community, I'm making these numbers up, by the way. It's not the reality. And I want to, and for me to train a client for an hour, I have to charge 10,001. Well, that's worth more of my time now, right? Like, it's not if I'm charging 9,000. So there's a supply and demand issue here, right? With coaches, at a certain point, coaches fill up their schedules, and it's almost mind-boggling. Like, you have a client and they're sitting there and they're nickel and diming you about $25. I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you go see the best doctors, you fly first class, you go to the best restaurants. The person who's steering you throughout the year through your health and wellness path, you're going to nickel and dime in a service business. Like it's insane. I got to a point in my career, it was one of the best parts of someone would even try and negotiate price with me. And this was probably 10 years ago. I would kick them off.
There you go.
No. I didn't mean that. I don't think this is for us. No. I didn't mean that. No, you don't understand. I don't have time. I'm done. Mic drop. It's over. And I would pass them to someone else because they did not understand the value of what it is I bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can work with a great coach, right? A great trainer. And those are two different things, by the way. A trainer is someone who's educated. A coach is going to get you internally. They're going to find you in your soul, and they're going to
everything else around just the training. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to find a good coach, a good trainer, this is someone that could steer you into a life of prosperity when it comes to your health. It's, oh my God, if they motivate you properly, if they're good at what they do, they're going to enable you to make better food choices. They're going to enable you to cut back on alcohol. They're going to help you de-stress. Like this line that I always said is allow them to make you think of, like, I want them to think of me as a necessity, not a luxury. Mm-hmm. So when someone's coming in there and they're trying to nickel and dime a coach, I'm just point in their career now where I would tell any intermediate coach who's a little bit along in their career, like, just don't even deal with it. Move on. You'll like it. The time ain't worth it. When you're starting off in your career and you're building your book, there's a different, obviously you're in a little bit of a different spot. You're hungry and you're trying to build it. But I don't think people put enough value into what it is we're doing. Like they want to go to a doctor and they want to, go get blood work and be diagnosed. They're going to pay X for this. So they're going to go to an attorney and they're going to pay Y for that. Why aren't you taking the person who is basically running the way that you could potentially feel? Or, a good coach is going to be able to open doors for the best doctors. And I just got off the phone with a woman who had double mastectomy, mm-hmm. who within literally 10 minutes, I had her on with a functional medicine doctor, a Yale professor who runs a very successful business. And he's doing bloods on her. He's doing gut health checks. He's doing hormone panel checks. I have a coach already going to her house, and I have the whole team speaking to each other.
Wow.
That's magical. Mm-hmm. We could set 10 minutes. It took me 10 minutes. That was it. We could set someone up for a high level of success if they value it properly. But if they're going to come in and they're going to nickel and dime, like, go to Crunch and work with a coach here. No offense to them, but you're getting what you pay for here.
That's the thing, is people don't understand the value and that it's literally their life. Like your health and who you are, it's for the rest of your life. And I think that's what people don't realize. And going back to you not taking this, famous person or whatever, I see where you're coming from. Because if you put all your eggs into one basket and they get sick, they get injured, something happens with them, and then you lose all of your income all of a sudden and you're screwed.
Well, it's not even, I don't even look at it from the income standpoint. Mm-hmm. I look at more from the growth standpoint of what it is I'm trying to do. So Annie, mm-hmm. Let's say this, you're trying to launch you have a successful podcast. And you're putting a lot of your eggs into that right now. And you have to recruit different guests and you have to do editing and all this stuff. And that starts paying you. I'm going to make a number up right now. Let's say at a certain point, you get that business up to where it's paying you $20,000 a month, right? You have to start looking at the other things that you're taking on and saying to yourself, well, is this going to get me beyond that? Right? Or is this going to add value to that? Or is this going to pull me away from that 20 grand a month that I'm making? And this is what a lot of coaches don't think about. They're trying to start online businesses, but they're training 12, 13 hours a day, and they're not getting their own training in. And I'm like, well, wait, hold on 1 second. One, you're your own business card. So if you neglect your own health and wellness, your business is going to go to shit. I don't care what you say, it's going to go to shit. No one's going to want to work with you if you're out of shape. And if you start getting sick and you start feeling bad about yourself, you're not going to be inspiring. Like that's not going to help anyone. And on top of that, like, you're taking away from the ability to be able to grow this online business that you're trying to grow. So I think the biggest problem I've seen with most coaches is they just get really comfortable. They're like scared. Like, oh, I built my book. What am I going to do? I had a trainer of mine reach out to me recently. I'm sorry, rephrase that. I reached out to them recently and I said, I've got a big Hollywood person for you. And they're like, well, what time is it? I said, 9 a.m. I can't mention the name. You've heard of this person. And they said, oh man, I can't do it. So I said, okay. And then I got off the phone, no problem. I got that person with someone within probably 5 minutes, no problem. And then my buddy called me that night. He goes, excuse my language. He said, I fucked up, didn't I? And I said, yeah, man. I said, but I said, listen, I said, it's a learning curve and own it. And it's not about training celebrities. It's about the fact that you've been in this rut in your career for a period of time, and you're not going to go anywhere until you start aligning yourself with people that could potentially help you out and catapult your career. Mm-hmm. This was a person that could have done that. And you treated him like everyone else. And it killed him. And it killed me to have to say this to that person. But he learned his lesson. I said, next time, get aggressive. We don't know how these things are going to work out. I've worked with clients that have neglected my value and have taken for granted what I've done and all this stuff in the past. It's going to happen. You're not going to bat 1,000 on this stuff, but you got to put yourself in situations. You got to throw balls in the air. You got to give yourself some opportunity. And by showing up to the same facility every single day, training the same people at the same hours and making the same money, I'm sorry. Like, if you're comfortable with doing that, congratulations. Awesome. You found wealth, you found happiness, and I will back off and don't listen to anything I'm saying. But most coaches aren't like that. Most coaches,
I do know people like that are they love it. They're so comfortable. They don't want anything else.
You know what? The ultimate, I think my grandfather used to tell me, the person who finds true wealth is the person who finds peace of mind. And I used to be 13 years old, and I would kind of be rolling my eyes to it. My grandfather was a caterer, came from nothing, Italian, lived in the attic of this restaurant. You know the whole story, right? We've all heard that story. But I used to think, I didn't understand at a young age what peace of mind was. I was just like, oh, when I'm young, I'm like, I want to become a millionaire. I want to make money. I want to do something I love. I want to play baseball. Peace of mind, I think, in my eyes, is having the ability to do what you want when you want, and to have health and happiness, and have a family that's
more
strong,
freedom, yeah,
and more freedom, and getting there. Listen, Tom Plummer said the funniest thing. I don't know if you know Tom. Yeah. He's Tom said one of the funniest lines about me. He was introing me or talking about me at one of the conferences, and he goes, Don Saladino, the 20-year overnight success, and I just started laughing because I thought it was hysterical. It was like, yeah, man, like, I get it. Like, it was everyone, they might see where I am now, where I'm going now. They don't understand they don't understand the hell I had to go through for all these years at the club. They don't understand, having Amex shut my car down. They don't understand Con Ed shutting my power down. Like, things you're just like, what? I had millions of dollars a year rolling through this club to just like literally couldn't afford to get my nails done. It's like in New York City. It's like, hello. And there's a period of time, like, 07, 08, it was tough. Those were tough years. I lost all my corporate events. I lost all my entertainment spending from all these firms like Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, these companies, Goldman Sachs. They were coming in spending $10,000 a night on events, and then suddenly poof, it's gone, and you're literally like hemorrhaging money. Like, you're gonna complain and put your head in a hole. Like, I didn't have the ability to do that. You had to figure it out. So the next thing you know, it became a decade of going to work every day going, holy shit, what fire do I have to put out? And that allows you to become tough. And then it allows you to appreciate what you have. You're just like, all right, what? Like, all right, what's my risk here? Like, no, I feel good about it. Let's go for it. Let's do our homework and make sure we're jumping into this, a bit strategic. But the coaches out there that are complaining to me about, not finding that next step, like, imagine going in and doing the same workout every day, right? Or imagine going in and eating the same exact diet plan every single day. After a period of time, I don't care if it's healthy or not, your body starts adapting. Your body adapts to the same macros, or seasonally things change. Like, I believe your eating should change. Training should change at a certain time. If you do the same thing over and over and over, at a certain point, like, that outcome is going to probably start looking the same. And if you're looking for a different outcome, you got to try something a little bit different. That's the rut these coaches are falling into.
I agree. And then those outcomes might not always be positive. You're going to go through these ups and downs just as an entrepreneurial in general. Yeah. But going back to time, like, time is all we have. And we know that you're talking about that. So as a trainer, how do you balance that when you're like, I have to take on this certain number of clients? I know that you can increase your prices here and there and start with that. But then how do you balance getting your workout and getting a nap in the day, and then trying to build these other, side hustles, I guess we'll call it, while you're still maintaining your income? That's, I think, is a struggle.
Well, my most important client ever was me.
Mm-hmm. I love Seriously,
that. I was my number one client. I would turn away people. I would turn away an individual every day to make sure I got my workout in. Because my mental health was more important than any amount of money I would charge per session. So I would have people look at me. I literally, to this day, I mark off my workout time in my appointment book every day. Tomorrow I know that at 8 a.m. I'm training. And if someone calls up and there's an important phone call or something I got to be on, unless it's an emergency, I'm booking around it. I treat me as if I am that appointment.
Good for you. As you should.
As you should. And that's step number one. I mean, unless it's someone, now I have a client or two, those one of the clients I work with, they call me up and we're like, we need you, done. I'm making it happen. They rarely say that, but if they say that, then I'll find another time during the day to work out. But let's be clear, 99% of my year, that doesn't happen. So, I end up sticking with that. So that's one. Two, if you have another side hustle you're trying to start, you have to treat that as an appointment or two. And you have to be willing to take some losses on that. When you're starting a new business and you're raising capital, most of the time, we don't get the cash flow positive on day one, right? And when you're starting up these concepts as trainers, you have to start thinking about that. You're going to have to take some losses with your time. You're going to have to start taking away from those appointments and putting them into, this new side hustle that you're trying to develop. How much time is that during the day? Whether that's 2 hours a day, maybe whether that's all day Saturday, whatever it is, you have to do that. That's the one thing with the pandemic that it forced a lot of people to do. When that happened, the ability for people to have so many options diminished. And I think that's why we saw it. Listen, it was a tough time for a lot of people, but I also saw a high level of success from a group of people who at that point I just saw suddenly didn't have a million things to do that day. And now they're sitting there and they're thinking about that one thing now that they need to work on to be successful. And I saw some people just take off like a rocket ship. And honestly, it was beautiful to see.
So focusing on one thing.
Yeah. I mean, at a point, my line always in the beginning, we need to throw balls in the air. We need to see opportunity and we need to start grabbing those different opportunities. And then at a certain point, you got to start weighing out like what's paying dividends here. All right. You know what? I've been working on this for 5 years. It's not growing. This app company's not good. I'm just not feeling it anymore. Like at a certain point, it's time to check out. But when you have that one thing to focus on, when you truly put your heart and soul into something, I've seen it. I've seen people get fired from jobs and then out of nowhere within 24 hours, they're set up to make triple what they were making at that last job. That fear gets injected into them. And now they suddenly start thinking a little bit differently or approaching a little bit differently. Some of the most creative moments of my life was when I was sitting there having to come up with cash in 24 hours. And I'm sitting up there against the wall, sweating, going, holy shit, what am I going to do? I almost missed 37 consecutive payrolls. That's a shitty place to be, but you have to do it when you're in certain situations, right? And so those situations are what forced me to kind of get creative. And, I always say like, yeah, I graduated from a small school in Connecticut, but like where I got my master's degree in business, I couldn't have gotten at Harvard. I don't care what anyone says. Like take someone out of the master's program at Harvard. They did not learn what I learned in the last 15 years.
Oh yeah, you got to apply it.
You got to apply it. And you know what, until it's easy to do things that are, in the book and that they talk about being practical, et cetera. But like, until you're under the heat, until you're sitting in that chair, it's impossible to really understand what it feels like. It's one thing to play with Monopoly money, but when you're gambling at a real table in Vegas, it's a different feeling, right? And that's the best example I can give.
Well, yeah, just like what you said, the people that are comfortable, the people that don't grow, the people that are going to the same place, the same routine, they're not switching it up, they're not going to make a difference. So until 100%. You're under that pressure, like maybe that forces you to do that. So 100%. Another thing too is like, I'm sure as you got started, you were doing a ton of things on your own. And I think as trainers, we kind of see ourselves as the star and we try to do all these things by ourselves. And at a certain point, you need help because 2 hours a day might not get you to where you want to be in these businesses. So when was the point for you where you were like, shit, I need to hire a team. I need help. When
I was going to lease, when I was leasing my first space back in 2004, because there were just areas like I was going and looking at real estate for 2 years. I lost one big location to, I think it was like Dwayne Reed, which rightfully so. I would have, if I was the landlord of that building, I would have given it to them also. They're an established brand and you have two young guys coming in running this new concept that made no sense. But still, I learned a big lesson there because now, we needed consultants. We needed people. I mean, I felt like someone threw me in the water when I'd never swam a day in my life. It was like swimming to Cuba. Like the way that I went about doing it was something I appreciate so much now, but knowing what I know, like, was it the best thing I've ever gone through in my life, or was it put me into a bad position? Right. It's one of, you were forced to learn throughout that process. I understood the importance of team. Dr. Greg Rose from TPI. Do you know Greg?
No.
Dr. Greg Rose, I think, is one of the most brilliant minds in our industry. He's the head of Titleist Performance Institute, On Base University, Perform Better speaker. He came to my place in New York City at 495 Broadway. And I remember him looking at me when it was a shell, and he's like, listen, man, don't try and be everything. And I remember looking at him, and it hit home. It really, I really absorbed it. And I realized, like, am I going to do the training, the nutrition, the business end? Am I going to be talking physical? No, it's like, you know what? I went out and I found the best PT, Charlie Weingroff. And, I started getting some really good golf professionals that, were able to have that dialogue. And then I found myself still enthralled in the training every day, but then cutting back on my book. And a new trainer would come in and I would give my book. And it was my job to talk to my clients about working with that trainer. Why did I need them to work with that person? I've gotten rid of my book in my life, I think probably close to a dozen times.
Wow.
There's not too many people can say that. So I built up to 40 to 60 sessions a week, got rid of them, and was like, all right, new people are coming in. I'll start taking on new people. A new trainer coming in. Here you go, over and over and over. And, as a coach, you just trust your ability to be able to go in and add value. It wasn't selling. It was, I'm convinced that if someone comes in here right now, and they're not looking for training, but they want to learn some stuff about fitness, it's not a doubt in my mind. Within minutes, I can get them wanting to work with me. Not a doubt in my mind. So that also is, that takes learning a little bit, right? And that's something where, when I was at Equinox back in '99, did I have the ability to do that? I think I was doing a lot of things right. Because someone asked me the other day, like, you've evolved a lot. I was like, oh my God, my training's evolved so much. But I think that personal touch, that not overselling someone, not even thinking about the sale, that was something that I did at a really young age. Like, I would go up to a client just to help them. And because if I was going up there talking pricing, or do you want to train with me? Like, it just came off not being genuine. So I was like, you know what? My whole goal is this. I see that guy, he can't touch his kneecaps and he's trying to work on it. Let me get him to touch his toes within a few minutes, because I know how to do that. Or this guy's complaining that he can't turn his spine in the golf swing. Let me show him some moves to work on some thoracic rotation. And let me leave him with no expectation of anything, to the point where they're going to be shocked. Jim, did you like that? Awesome. Let me know if you need anything else. See you later. They're like, up. And they're like almost like shocked for walking off. And that was the approach that I took. And that's why I think I had a
reel them in.
That's how you reel them in. So that's what worked for me. I'm still shocked sometimes when I go to these gyms and they're pounding down people's throats. Probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from some of the big box gyms. I'll ask clients, why don't you not like working there? They're like, every time I walk in, some trainer's up my ass. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's just, to me, it's like, it's almost, it doesn't, it's something that, you wonder why they haven't taught by now.
Oh, well, people see right through it. They can see that you're genuine, you care, and that's why they work with you. And so it seems like the gym for you was kind of the biggest rocket ship to help with things, just to get extra help, and maybe the biggest income stream for you.
Well, this is my home gym now, which is pretty cool. Like, I got 2 floors here. It's probably big enough to host 30, 40 people in here. Awesome. And I work out here, and I probably, right, Lisa Wild from Life Fitness and Hammer Strength's over in the corner right now. I do a lot of work with them, so it's fun to have her here. But I probably have enough room, 30, 40 people in here, and we're the only ones here right now. I got a friend of mine back on the step mill, but this vehicle has really been used for me to become a content hub. I don't work with anyone out of here. People aren't coming here to train for money. Some of the stuff I do here, it's like working with my friend John, who was 525 pounds, but we shoot all of our content out of here, and I get my workouts here. We host a couple of live episodes with Muscle and Fitness and Men's Health and that stuff. So this really has become my office. And honestly, it's been an incredible run for me. I mean, if you looked at me 25 years ago and you start mentioning the words of things I'm doing now, like digital media and paid spend and, online community, and Facebook and playbook and all this stuff. You wouldn't even know what these words were back then. Back in 98, 99, no one knew any of those things. The internet, it's like the internet was just, they started talking about internet when I went to college. It's like no one was even really using it. And to see how this business has evolved, going off, like in the next month, I'll be in Seattle, San Francisco, Dallas, Kentucky. Like these few months for me are going to be some months of traveling, but got 2 kids. You got a great property here, and I got the freedom to be able to come and go as I want. We work really hard. We have a team here helping us out, and we're working on this stuff from early morning till night, but we love it. That's the difference. It doesn't feel like work. How many days do I work? I work 7 days a week. I love it. It's what we love.
Mm-hmm. And that's the best thing. That's where you get the freedom and you enjoy what you're doing. So I want to talk a little bit about the training because I know that's your main thing. So you've trained a ton of actors in the past. You're training, I know, Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool. So I want to talk about that a little bit. What does the training look like getting ready for a movie like that?
Probably no different than what any other training looks like, right? Depending on, most people are coming in with the same goals, right? I mean, Ryan will turn to me, and depending on the movie, maybe we have to put on a little weight or not, but that stuff, so it's easy. Like, I think putting on muscle really isn't hard. Like, if you have a sound training program and you get them into a bit of a surplus and, we stimulate the body the right way and really focus on function, which is always my number one focus, I think good things happen out of that. And the training plans are always going to change, but the methodology always stays the same. So we screen, we turn around, we roll, we practice first. Practice meaning, call it what you want, your dynamic warm up. I call it practice because practice for me could be where we're working on things the individual needs to improve upon. Now, that practice could be their hang, their pull up. That practice could be the thoracic rotation, the thoracic extension, like I said earlier. So we practice for about 10 minutes to get the body loose, to get the body unwind. And then the portion of their lifting, their resistance training, that's all really coming down to what the goal is. So, and where they are, what's their starting point. So that's probably why I'm really good at writing programs the last 25 years, is because I've had to write so many different ones for so many different people according to things that they enjoy. I don't care what the best program is. If they hate doing it, I don't want them to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's my job as a coach to be able to gift wrap something a little bit differently and to deliver to them and to get that training response. So, God, I feel like almost every program I've written it's never the same. There's always some type of tweak in there. Ryan, honestly, is one of the easiest human beings to work with. I mean, he told me the other day, we've been working together for 14 years. I thought it was less. He's like, oh, it's 14. I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's incredible. Crazy. But yeah, I mean, him and his wife, Blake, have done more for me in my career than I could ever even explain. And, probably the reason why they're the only they are the 2 main people that I'm still working with. I really don't work with many other people. They've given me a lot. So I'm very grateful.
Now, these training sessions, are you doing body part splits? Do you kind of split it up that way? Or is it,
it depends. I can break everything down from, Ryan's done full bodies to upper lower splits to more frequency body part splits, where we might be doing, we could be doing push one day, pull one day, legs one day off, push, pull, legs. Frank Seppi and I just created a great program on donsaladino.com called Sleeveless. We broke it down into like 2 different phases during the week. It's like our max resistance, which is our heavier training. Our max accumulation is more of our rep work. And we progress, we periodize the reps like every 2 weeks. And we progress the exercises every month for 3 months. So stuff like that's fun because I really feel like it's cutting down on the wear and tear in the joints. It's allowing us to work on all 5 components of fitness. With the max accumulation, we're definitely focusing a little bit more on muscular endurance and hypertrophy. And then getting into the max resistance, we're definitely focusing a little bit more on strength, power, and hypertrophy, right? We're always probably creating hypertrophy, right? And movement is always the core. Like for me, resiliency is always the core. Like Ryan does a lot of his own stunts. So he does a lot of the stuff like on these movie shoots. So I got to make sure he's going off with a high level of resiliency in his body.
Now, are you checking in with someone like him very consistently to see how he's feeling and the stress that he's enduring, and then you kind of base the program off of that?
Not with him because we were working so long. I see right now I still see him a decent amount because I'm with him. I see him a couple days a week. So we know by now what's going on, and we know that, you know, there are days, depending on travel, that we're gonna, you know, he's learned a lot, you know, in this period of time. So if he has a question, he asks, but I'm not down his throat. I don't need to overcoach. You know, it's not something where, you know, I need to be sitting there on top of him, texting him 5 times a day. You know, he's busy enough. So, but some people might need that. There are clients I work with where, you know, we do 1 or 2 check-ins, you know, a day, and what's going on, how are we feeling, and they're a little bit more panicked. And with him, like, he's so easy because we know it works by now, and he's kind of becomes like a robot. It's just able to get on cruise control. So he makes my life easy.
Now, are you programming things for when they are not working with you? Or are you sending out a schedule for them to do on their own?
100%. Yeah, they have their program. I mean, we will deviate off their program depending on if there's some speed bumps thrown along the way. But yeah, no, we're not frivolously turning around saying, oh, let's just do this day in this rep range. Like, no, there's a thought process. I mean, we're always looking at, like, when's that shoot date, and, you know, what are we, and this is with any actor I work with, like, how much time do we have, right? That's number one. And what are we trying to create, right? So a lot of times I've sat down with, you know, I remember sitting down with Liev Schreiber at a desk like this in the city, who plays Ray Donovan, and he was preparing for a movie called Chuck, which is about, you know, the Rocky story, Chuck Wepner. And Liev's like, for this role, I got to look like this Russian shot putter. And he pulled the picture up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, all right. So we had to, oh no, I'm sorry. That was Hellboy. Liev had to actually, like, fatten up a little bit. I hate using that word, but he had to actually put some body fat on. So, but we need to pull those pictures up, or those images up, to understand where do we need to take that physique in that period of time. And that's really helpful. But throughout that whole process, that level of resiliency, it's always a must. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, movement is never being jeopardized for any of these roles. I'm never coming in there going, oh, let's make sure they move like shit for this role. Like, it's always, how can we improve movement quality? Dave Harbour for Hellboy, you know, he's in Stranger Things now. He had to wear that prosthetic suit for Hellboy. And what people don't realize is that when I met him, I think we started training, we only had 8 or 9 weeks of training for that role. He was struggling to pick up a 24-kilogram kettlebell because his back was in bad shape. So, you know, we did about a 90% pull off the ground. I think on the final day, he pulled 400 pounds with a barbell, and he wanted to keep going, and he easily had more in him. And I turned to him, I said, you're done. And he's like, come on, man, we got to keep going. You're done. I was like, I literally looked at him, I said, it's over. Like, let's move on. Congratulations. I just said, and he just started, he's like, what the hell? He's like, why are you doing this? I'm like, I'm not sending you on a plane tomorrow to Bulgaria to get off the plane not unable to walk, or, you know, you suddenly go in a flexion and you blow something out. Like, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Like, you're not getting anything out of pulling an additional 15, 20 pounds, for the exception of being able to say that you pulled an additional 15, 20 pounds. So if we didn't have a movie, fine. But, you know, I, as a coach, I got to help them make good decisions. So yeah, every single actor I've ever worked with, it's always something different. I've had people come into me and like, what do you need to do? I need to just go off, feel in shape. You know, I need to feel in shape. And that's great also. I've had some funny stories though with, you know, people coming in, and it's always Brad Pitt and Fight Club, or Brad Pitt and Fight Club. I mean, I was like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that recommendation. So I got stories there, but yeah, it's always different.
All right. So when it comes to training actors, a lot of them are super busy. So when it comes to balancing like the cardio and the training, are you kind of just putting in conditioning style cardio moves into the training to kind of keep it at a minimal amount of workout time?
No, I'm not. And a lot of times I kind of frown upon that because I feel like it's too taxing with their family schedule and their shooting schedule, because most of the time these actors are preparing for roles and they're not off of work. They're shooting another movie at that time, right? So I got to be cognizant of the steps they're getting in a day. If someone's getting 20,000 steps in a day because they're on a shoot and they're just finding enough time to squeeze in, you know, weight training, if the goal isn't fat loss or, you know, or weight loss, like, I don't really see the point in throwing in meaningless cardio or making that session metabolic or tiring them out more, right? Like, maybe I'm doing some zone 2 stuff just to keep them consistent and help, you know, increase, you know, getting rid of that waste from the body. Psychologically, it definitely helps that. It'll help from a recovery standpoint. But, you know, I think the misconception, when I prepped for over a dozen magazine covers, And anytime I've never had more than 4 or 5 weeks to get ready. Like Muscle Fitness calls me up. You're on the cover in this month. You got to shoot in July and it's June. I'm like, all right, I gotta go in with what I have. And I've never once in my life lightened up the workout or made it more metabolic or whatever you want to call it, right? Or more conditioning based. I think for someone that's natural, it's a complete mistake. I think that when you are a natural athlete and you're not on anything performance enhancing, you need that level of heaviness. You need to train those dense fibers. You need to still train heavy when you're in a bit of that deficit. And I think the mistake most people make is that they start focusing more on heart rate and less in the muscle. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes in fitness is, oh, I'm not tired, or, oh, I'm not sweating. I'm like, listen,
yes.
keep your cardio training with your cardio. Keep your resistance training with the resistance portion of it. Every once in a while, it's okay to change up that energy system and make your training session a little bit more what's the word? More work capacity based, where we're circuit training. That's fine. I'm fine with that once in a while. But most people aren't focusing on taxing the muscle. They're focusing on tiring themselves out. And that's why they get weak. And I think that's why they lose muscle mass, and that's why they lose strength. And every female I've worked with, whether it's Blake Lively, whether it's Emily Blunt, whether it's Annie Hathaway, whether it's Cindy Crawford, it doesn't matter. It's like they are carrying weight, they are pushing, they are pulling, they are doing hip dominant, they are doing knee dominant, they are pushing sleds, they are doing things to create tension in the body. And we're challenged. Now, at a certain point, do I think they need to be going to failure? Do I think they need to be doing clusters or force reps or negatives? The answer is no. Like, I might shut them down 1 to 2 reps in reserve, and that's great. And that's fine. And it's safe. And we're stimulating the body, and we're achieving the result that we want to achieve. But I think a lot of times people get into this mindset of, I got to just work and run and move around. And, I'm in this high intensity class. Like, tell me about it. Oh, it's great. It's 45 on, 15 off. I'm like, that's not high intensity. I'm like, if I was to measure your heart rate, I'm almost betting that you're in like a zone 2. You're probably up around 140, 145. You're probably feeling tired. You're probably sweating. That's not high intensity. They're like, really? I'm like, no, it's not. High intensity is like, I've been using this analogy lately. I'm putting a like a steak. I'm taping it to your back, and I'm releasing a pack of wild dogs on you as you run around a 400-meter track. Like, that's high intensity. Yeah. You're not going again. You're not going in 30 seconds. You're not going in 1 minute. You're not going in 90 seconds. You're going to have to rest for probably 3 to 5 minutes. That's high intensity. Everything else, I think, is medium intensity intervals, are 30 on, 30 off, or 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And then after that, I think we're getting into that slow, steady state, which has a purpose. Let's stop looking at the fact that, high intensity burns the most fat. I'm like, all right, by what? Show me, like, honestly, by what? By 0.0001%? What if someone's fried? What if they're trying to maintain a level of muscle? What if they're injury prone? What if their body's beat up? Like, you're going to have them high intensity interval train on the treadmill? Like, that's a terrible decision, right? So I think we have to start looking at not what's best for that person.
Yeah. And I think one of the worst things is this whole thing with Apple watches and all these different calorie counter watches that people are comparing how many calories they burn and their heart rate. And then they're taking these Orange Theory classes, which is based on heart rate, I guess.
What are you measuring?
Yes, exactly.
What are you measuring? I walked into an Orange Theory one day. They didn't know who I was. They didn't ask. The woman behind the counter was a salesperson. And I said, what do you guys do here? I'm just curious. I knew what they did. Oh, we run these classes and we measure using, I forgot what it was. It was Polar, or I don't know what, is it Polar? It might be Polar. And, we have to say, we get into certain zones. And I'm like, well, how do you know what zone that person should be in?
Yeah. And why?
And why? And she was just kind of like,
they have no idea. I know.
They have no idea. So like, it's even like when you measure, like when you go online, you type in zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone cardio, like it gives you a range. But like, I still don't even understand that. Like, I understand the range is fine, but I don't understand how, if my max heart rate's at 180 beats, let's say, and yours is at 195, and I know people can get on the treadmill, they're up at 195 running and having a conversation.
Yep.
I'd be dead at that. Genetic, whatever you call it, like whatever, it doesn't matter. So how are we suddenly in the same zone at a certain level of heart rate? Like 130 to me is going to feel a hell of a lot different than 130 to that person over there. right? Like when I'm at 130, 140, I'm working, right? I know people that like could just get on the treadmill and start walking and they're at 130 and they're like, that's it. Like, all right, like it's all, I don't understand how we generalize all this stuff. And it doesn't make any sense.
No, and I don't like it. I mean, no hate on Orange Theory, but also hate on Orange Theory because I don't like the concept of it. And I have clients coming to me all the time that are now super concerned about sweating and how many calories they burn and how hard they push themselves.
I'm not a huge sweater in the weight room. Like I might perspire a little bit. I'm not like, if I go for a run, yeah, you're wringing out my shirt, and I do a lot of open water swimming, like, not sweating a lot underwater. Like it's fine. Like it's effort is effort, tension is tension, movement is movement. You need to focus on these things. And it's very easy for me right now to turn this room up to 100 degrees and have someone do some bullshit and feel like they're working. There's a difference between training and working out.
Yep.
There is. It is, training. I feel like we have a purpose. Working out, I like going for a workout once in a while. I like going for a run. Mindless, getting lost in your head. Fantastic. I believe we do need that once in a while, but a lot of these group training methods, they're very fluffy. But on the other hand, if you take an individual and they turn around, they said, you know what, in 2022, I sat on my ass every night and I ate ice cream. And then this year I woke up and I sat on a spin bike 5 days a week. Yeah. And I biked and I sweated and I started making more better decisions with what I was eating. Then
movement, right?
And like, who am I to say? Like, as a coach, it's my job to make you better, more resilient for spin. Like, do I like someone sitting in that position? No, but sometimes people love certain things, and you got to let them go, and you gotta let them have their fun. And I think as a coach, it's now your job to say, how can I make you more resilient to be able to do the things that you love?
Absolutely. And I've had times where I'm exhausted and not motivated at all. And I'll go to a workout class because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do this and get it done. But it's not the majority of my training. And it's maybe once every 2 weeks. So I think
that's great. Yeah. I think that's great. But also, if I was to ask you, training, you look great, right? But it makes you feel better, right? Now, when I start talking to people and I'm like, well, how's training working out for you? Oh my God, I love the community. Shoulders hurt me. What else? Back's hurting me. What else? Elbow and knees are hurting me. I'm like, all right, there's a problem here. Like we have to look at this. Like we have to reassess programming. We have to reassess the movements you're doing, the intensity that you're doing them at, maybe the frequency that you're doing them at, right? I mean, these are all questions that, I need to know about. I don't want you to stop training, especially if you love doing it. But, I don't like the irresponsibility of coaches just putting everyone in this global, package. And I sell global programs. I sell programs that groups of thousands are doing at once. But I'm on here, people are like, well, I just had surgery. What do I do? I'm like, you got to talk to your PT. Bring the program to your PT, and they're probably going to want to stay out of knee dominant movements. We'll probably start you back in a step up at some point, but they're the boss asking that question. That's why I could justify selling the things that I sell. Because on my challenges, if you ask a question, you're getting an answer the following day. So if someone's saying, listen, doctor doesn't want me going overhead, but they cleared me to go horizontally, I can give you an answer now, right? And I can help you make a better, a more intelligent decision that's going to allow you to be and feel successful.
Absolutely. And it's very individual, and it is for the rest of your life. So you have to be very, very, very focused on what you're doing. All right. So where can they find you and what's next for you?
Amazing. DonSaladino.com. Instagram's Don Saladino. A lot of good stuff going on. Yeah. Go to my site and you can check it all out. I don't want to bore everyone.
You have retreats coming up?
I have 2 weeks. I rented an island in Mexico. I rented one last year, Puerto Vallarta. We took the island over. We had about 70 people from 15 different countries. We've already doubled that number. So we're doing 2 weeks in Mexico in July. I think I only have like 8 or 10 slots open out of the 160 slots. So that's going to go pretty quick soon. Really excited about that. A bunch of projects I'm working on, a new meal delivery service company that we just launched called Daily Dose. Phenomenal. If you message me, I'll send you some meals. I want you to try that. Get you some free food over there. And that's it.
Cool. All right. I will put it all in the description. And thanks for being on the Annie Tunes In podcast.